So, welcome to my interview. My project's on the lives of Ulysses Grant and Robert Lee. They were both generals of the Civil War, and there were 5 things that started the Civil War. Started off with the invention of the cotton gin, which helped the South produce cotton faster. And Carlos, what's another reason?
Well, the Woodland Proviso was a huge reason in leading up to the Civil War. It was introduced in August 8th, 1846, as a rider bill. Now, what the Woodland Proviso seek to do was to stop slavery in any territories gained from the Mexican War and any future territories gained from the Mexican War, like South Texas.
Thank you. All right, so President Nathan,
Yes,
can you tell me about Uncle Tom's Cabin?
Well, Uncle Tom's Cabin was a novel published by Harriet Beecher Stowe in March of 1852, and it revealed the horrors that were, and very much so, were occurring in slavery at the time, and it struck the hearts of many Americans.
So how do you feel about slavery?
I'd have to say, Michelle, what do you think? I'd have to say, speaking for Michelle, it struck in the hearts of many Americans, as it does myself.
Are you President Obama right now?
Of course I am. President Nathan Obama III.
Okay.
Mostly, I'd like to thank the Republican Party for slavery. Of course.
Did you know Abraham Lincoln was a Republican?
Abraham Lincoln.
Thank you, Nathan, for your input. And
Very well.
yeah, General Dorsey, can you tell me about the Articles of Confederation?
Well, see here, son. The Articles of Confederation was technically the first written constitution of the United States of America,
Really?
which was ratified on March 1st, 1787. It was slowed down primarily because of the fear that it would cause too much control for the government, forcing all the other lower states to be forced and subjected to a type of monarchy that they did not want.
Well, thank you. Now, y'all, can y'all tell me about popular sovereignty? Because that seems to be a major reason why the Civil War happened.
Well, popular sovereignty let the states choose for their own. Instead of having the federal government come down and tell them all what to do, the states finally got a choice of their own. So, as you can probably tell now, the North chose primarily for non-slavery, and the South chose primarily for slavery.
Right.
Popular sovereignty was first instituted when the states were given the choice to decide whether or not to become a slave state or remain a free state.
More or less, the popular sovereignty helped, even though you had a large state that had far more land than much of the other smaller states. If a larger state had less people, their votes for popular sovereignty weren't as high as ones such as Rhode Island, which were mainly a small island but could have had a whole lot more people, which means they had a higher vote and carried more voice.
Right. Now, see, apparently, another reason why the Civil War happened was the South was getting stronger than the North because of their own production of cotton around the world, and the Union was trying to limit them, and the South wanted to expand more out west, and the Union was trying to control them and construct them. That's why they were trying to break off. Dorsey, who were Ulysses Grant and Robert Lee?
Well, Grant was a general for the Union and soon became the 18th President of the United States. Lee, on the other hand, was a general for the Confederates. Grant was also the latest president to ever known to own slaves, but he freed his slaves before he became president.
Really?
Yep. Lee was the best military genius that the Americans had ever produced at the time because he started things like trench warfare and others.
Well, okay. Now, when and where were these soldiers born?
Lee was born on January 19, 1807 in Virginia in a mansion called Stamford Hall on the Potomac River? Yeah. In Westmoreland Country. Hermes Ulysses Grant was born on April 27, 1822 at the Point Pleasant in Ohio.
Alright. Did they have any siblings?
Lee was the 5th and youngest child of Henry and Anne Hill Carter Lee. Grant has 5 younger siblings, but Jesse and Hannah Grant.
Oh, okay. Now, who were Anne Hill Carter Lee and Hannah Grant?
Anna Hill Carter Lee was the daughter of a rich plantation owner, and she was very close to Robert Lee. Not much is known about Hannah Grant. She keeps her distance from Grant and never came to visit Grant at the White House during his terms.
Who was Jesse Grant?
Jesse Grant was born on January 23, 1794 in Pennsylvania. Jesse Grant was against slavery and was a good father by taking in Grant after his misshapings.
Now, who was Henry Lee?
Henry Lee was a soldier in the Revolutionary War and was the governor of Virginia during 1971 and 1974. His nickname, Light Horse Harry, became his swift cavalry attack on the British. George Washington acknowledged Henry for saying that he's a remarkable degree of prudence, enterprise, and bravery. He unfortunately went to jail 3 times and fled to the West Indies for bankruptcy. This is a huge impact on Robert Lee because he never knew his father, but he carried the military tradition to restore his family name.
Okay. What were the personalities like of Ulysses Grant and Robert Lee?
Well, I will speak for Dorsey, and I will say, both soldiers were outdoors men and loved sports, but Grant was more shy than Lee Grant. He also had a lack of business sense and had native trust in people because kids used to call him Useless Grant instead of Ulysses Grant.
Was Robert Lee married, and did he have any kids?
Indeed he was. Lee married his cousin, Mary Custis, on June 30th, 1831. He married his cousin specifically because she resembled of his mother's features. Mary was actually the great-granddaughter of George Washington. Lee and Mary had 7 children, 3 sons and 4 daughters.
Really?
Yes.
Was Ulysses Grant married, and did he have any kids?
Indeed he was. Grant proposed to Julia Gent in 1844, but had to wait for 4 more years due to the Mexican-American War. In the next 6 years, the couple had 4 children together.
Okay. Did Ulysses Grant and Robert Lee attend any type of military school?
Lee was enrolled into West Point in July of 1825. Grant's father signed him up for West Point, and he passed the entrance exam in 1839.
Were you considering joining West Point one time?
You know, I tried my best and graduated top of my class at West Point.
Well, man, thank you for your service.
Yes, sir. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. Can you tell me about their West Point experience and maybe your experience?
My experience at West Point was very different. See, I was top of my class, and that's all I got to say about that.
Wow, so you're kind of like Robert Lee.
Yeah, much of it could not be said on camera.
Okay.
But I'll get back
So
to
classified. Huh?
classified, mostly
I got you.
classified.
Black
I'll
ops,
get
sorry.
back to Mr. Lee. Lee excelled at West Point, breaking many records there, like being the first cadet to not get any demerits, and was appointed Corps Adjutant, which is a post given to a cadet with finest military bearing and best record on the drill ground. Unlike Lee, Grant barely graduated West Point. Grant didn't like the military rules, and he was very sloppy. He didn't do very well. Grant was demoted to private his 4th year because of his alcohol addiction.
Wow.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
Grant also got to know his wife at West Point because he married his roommate, Frederick Dent's sister.
Okay. Did Ulysses Grant and Robert Lee have any prior military experience before the Civil War?
Both were involved in the Mexican-American War, and Grant got to know of Lee from his war. Lee heard of Grant also, but never could recognize him. Both men started to hate war because of this war and thought this war was pointless. This soon had an effect on soldiers later on life about being hesitant about joining the Civil War.
Okay. Now, are you ready, Sergeant Carlos?
I am.
All right, man. So, how did they get involved in the Civil War?
Well, Grant got out of the Army after West Point because he didn't like the military life. He started working as a normal citizen under his father because he failed at other jobs around the area. He soon became bored and started to look at military strategies by Napoleon, which gave interest back in the Army. Grant eventually joined the Army again and was colonel of the 21st Volunteers and was sent to Missouri to fight against the Confederates. Lee was offered to fight for both sides, but denied each offer because he did not believe in war and did not want his family around it. He eventually joined the Confederates because he wanted to protect his hometown Virginia from a northern invasion.
Now, would you protect the city of Lakeland if there was a northern invasion?
I feel like I would, yes.
Why?
Lakeland is very close to me. All my family is here, and the community is very important to me.
Okay, and you said Ulysses Grant looked up strategies by Napoleon. Can you tell me who Napoleon was?
Well, Napoleon Bonaparte was the French emperor, and he conquered much of Europe and claimed it for France.
Well, that's a good mentor to look up to. How did they become generals in the Civil War?
Well, Lee became general due to his history at West Point. President Jefferson Davis of the Confederates declared Lee the general of the regular army on May 1st. Grant, on the other hand, was more lucky. President Lincoln asked an Illinois congressman to become general, and surprised Grant was who the congressman appointed. Grant then became Major General when he became a hero by capturing Fort Donelson.
What were their first battles?
Grant's first battle of the Civil War occurred on November 7th and led to 3,100 Union soldiers against 2,500 Confederate soldiers, and he was victorious. On April 12th, 1861, Lee had his debut on the Battle of Cheat Mountain and lost to Union forces.
Okay. Now, what was the first and last battle between Grant and Lee?
Well, the first battle between the generals was at the Battle of Shiloh, and it cost each side about 10,000 soldiers. The final confrontation between the two soldiers was at the Battle of Palmito Ranch in Texas on May 13, 1865. Lee surrendered the last Confederate army to Grant at the Appomattox Courthouse on April 9, 1865.
Well, I think that will conclude our interview today. I want to thank you, Sergeant.
It's a pleasure.
President.
It's my pleasure.
General. I appreciate it.
No problem.
All right, we have some extra words now from our president, our general, and our lieutenant. Now, General, can you tell me something about Coach Castle?
Well, you see here, son, Coach Cass is a real good friend of mine. You know, back in the day when we
Back in
actually
the day.
started, way back in the day around the First World War.
World War
One.
Oh,
Right then and that, when me and him first had enlisted,
Uh-huh.
whenever me and him was working in the
Well, I love Coach Castle.
what you call it,
Salt mines.
yeah, that right there. Whenever we had went undercover in the salt mines to take apart some of the some random division. What is it, young blood?
How you feel about this season? How you feel about this season?
You know, this man. Well, look. This season we had a new model, new model. You know, new model.
Uncle Ray! Uncle Ray!
Yeah, that right here, Curry. That Curry here. You know, I knew.
Coach Castle, can you spell that for me?
Well, you see, it is C-U-R. He. Just like that. C-U-R, he.
Now, speaking of he's, how you feel about that man Dorsey?
Well, me, you know, it's good, boy, right there. He kind of had.
Man.
Yeah, I don't really know what the bad stuff he done did, but I heard some things that he well, you know, last year we only had him for 2 years.
I
But
hope he can turn it around soon.
man, I hope so. It's a fine, strapping young fella. You know. I see greatness in that big boy. I mean, you know, we always tell him he can bench the weight room and everything.
Coach Castle.
What's it, son? What is it?
I want to listen from my man Sergeant Carlos.
Okay, Sergeant Carlos, what's up?
Sergeant Carlos, can you tell me something that what Coach Castle started?
Well, Coach Castle, let me tell you something.
Tell me something.
Define the word strategy.
At least you know, son.
That's three sentences.
At least you know.
Strategy.
That's three sentences.
Strategy, you want a strategy? When you got the opponent football team, all right?
Football team?
And they're in the castle,
In the castle. Point again.
Brian Stadium, that castle down there.
you're not leaving that castle.
Yeah.
You're not leaving that castle.
The castle. There's a castle right there.
That is Castle Stadium. That's my stadium.
What's up?
3 world wars.
You know it.
Won
You
by
know
Coach
it.
Castle.
From the front.
Coach Castle
From
himself
the front.
through 3
Took all 3 of them. All 3 of them.
Hey,
Coach Bennett would like to say something.
Oh, Coach Bennett. Tell me something, Coach Bennett.
So basically, well, from a biology standpoint, football's a lot like lifting weights.
Look at his arms.
They're so big, I know I can't touch them.
Look at his
Can't do
arms.
this. Can't do this in football.
Look at his arms.
All right, when you're doing a squat, right?
Yeah.
All right, imagine a squat is slavery.
Oh.
Really?
Oh,
All right. Now you got to squat deep.
No, Coach Bennett.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you have the slaves work out at any time?
Oh, I mean, I always would keep. I would definitely, if I owned slaves, yeah, I would definitely say you got to keep them in good shape. No curls. No curls. No curls. Not my channel.
You know, in football, the girl, this motion right here,
Nice arms.
come on now.
Coach
It's all
Castle.
What is
triceps.
it?
I thought they said it was curls for the girls. No, it's not
When it comes to our programs,
Is that true?
we work before we go with them girls. We is dedicated men.
you want a good
this
body-
is what we do. This is what we do.
We got to weight lift. We got to be strong in football.
No.
You want a good body like
that's
Taylor
not
here?
true,
You go to
man.
Gold's and you do sit-ups.
Yeah.
We don't
You
do
talk
sit-ups in here.
about Mr. Taylor who my arms are from a different race. From a different race.
No shave November, all right?
No shade, no.
I take that to heart.
Son. Last time I remembered, it was December 15th.
December.
I mean,
Don't shave December.
I mean,
it's a concurrent add-on to no shave November. No shave November.
Son, you sure?
Yeah, I'm positive. Yeah.
Now, Nathan.
Yeah. Better.
Nathan, can you tell? How do you feel about slavery, man? How do you feel
Slavery,
about it?